No obligations, no expectations, no schedules to keep or authorities to obey. You are free, completely and utterly free. At first, it feels exhilarating. You could go anywhere, do anything, become anyone. You are no longer bound by the weight of responsibility or the judgment of others. But then, something strange happens. As the day stretches before you, untouched and unstructured, a feeling of unease creeps in. A quiet, growing discomfort. Because now, every choice is yours alone. There is no one telling you what to do, no one defining right or wrong for you, no system to rebel against, no expectations to either meet or reject. And suddenly, freedom doesn't feel like liberation. It feels like terror. Most people claim they want freedom. They fantasize about escaping the demands of work, society, or obligation. They speak of adventure, of quitting their jobs, of breaking free from the system. But if that were true, why do so few actually take the leap? Why do so many remain stuck in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, routines that feel like slow suffocation? They could leave, they could change, but they don't. They say they're waiting for the right time, that they need a plan, a sign, a moment of clarity, but in truth, something deeper is holding them back, something they don't want to admit, even to themselves. They are afraid. Afraid of what? Not of failure, not even of struggle. They are afraid of the weight of their own choices. Because real freedom is not just about escaping oppression. It is about taking full, relentless responsibility for yourself. No more blaming the system. No more external rules dictating what's right and wrong. No more built-in excuses for why you haven't become who you want to be. There is only you. And that realization is enough to send most people running back to their cages. We like to believe that slavery is a thing of the past, that we live in an age of self-determination, where we are the authors of our own lives. But what if the most powerful form of slavery is the one you cannot see? Not chains of iron, but chains of expectation. Not cages of steel, but cages of comfort. Most people are not forced into submission, they willingly submit because the alternative, true freedom, is too overwhelming to bear. It is easier to be told what to do than to decide for yourself. It is easier to follow a path than to carve your own. It is easier to accept an identity than to create one from nothing. And so we surround ourselves with rules and routines, not because they are necessary, but because they make the chaos of life more bearable. But what if you stripped all of that away? What if you had to create your own values, your own meaning, your own direction, without a guidebook, without a structure, without a system to follow? Would you still want freedom? Or would you retreat into the familiar, convincing yourself that your cage is exactly where you want to be? We tell ourselves that freedom is the ultimate goal. But if that were true, why do so few ever achieve it? Why do people fear breaking away from the systems they claim to despise? And if the real enemy isn't oppression but our own unwillingness to take responsibility for our lives, then what does that mean for you? These are the questions that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. But will you have the courage to face them? Imagine waking up one day and realizing that your entire life has been scripted, not by some grand conspiracy, not by an external tyrant, but by invisible forces you never questioned. From childhood, you were taught what to believe, how to behave, what to value. You were given a name, an identity, a role to play in society. Every step you took was guided by unseen hands, parents, teachers, institutions, tradition, and you followed. Not because you were forced to, but because it felt safe. Now, for the first time, you see the strings. And the most terrifying realization isn't that they exist, It's that you helped weave them. You accepted the structure, you embraced the rules, and even now, as you long for freedom, something inside you resists. What? Why does part of you cling to the very chains you wish to break? The answer lies deep within human psychology, within the way your mind is wired, within the philosophies that have shaped civilization itself. To understand why most people are afraid to be free, you must first understand why the mind seeks captivity. Freedom is terrifying because it is chaos. Without external structures, without authorities dictating your path, everything becomes uncertain. The human brain is not wired for uncertainty. It is wired for survival. And survival depends on predictability. A structured society means fewer threats. A set of rules means fewer unknowns. A stable identity means less existential confusion. This is why people unconsciously seek control, not just over their environment, but over themselves. Carl Jung called this the fear of individuation, the fear of breaking away from the collective and embracing the full weight of your own existence. Because to do that, you must abandon the comfort of certainty. And certainty is addictive. It's why people stay in toxic relationships, soul-crushing jobs, belief systems they no longer agree with. It's why they conform, even when no one is forcing them to. Because even a painful cage is safer than an open, empty sky. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this fear of freedom as one of the great tragedies of human nature. He argued that most people do not want to think for themselves. They do not want to carve their own path, because doing so requires a level of strength and responsibility that few are willing to bear. Instead, they seek herd morality, a set of prepackaged beliefs that tell them how to live, what is right and wrong, what success looks like, what happiness should be. And so they follow, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack the will to stand alone. Nietzsche distinguished between two types of people: the last man, the passive, comfort-seeking individual who follows the crowd, avoids hardship, and seeks only pleasure and security; the Übermensch, the rare individual who creates their own values, who takes full responsibility for their own existence. Most people live and die as the last man, not because they have to, but because freedom demands suffering. And suffering, the struggle of self-diagnosis, of making mistakes, of carrying one's own burden, is something most would rather avoid. Arthur Schopenhauer, the great pessimist, took this even further. He believed that humans are not actually rational beings. They are ruled by the will, a blind, unconscious force that dictates their desires, fears, and habits. To Schopenhauer, most people are not actually choosing their lives. They are being pulled by forces they don't understand. The desire for approval, the fear of rejection, the need for external validation. This is why true freedom is terrifying, because to be free, you must first recognize that you are not actually in control. Not of your desires, not of your conditioning, not of the unconscious fears that shape your every decision. And if that is true, then freedom is not as simple as breaking societal rules. It is about breaking free from yourself. But this fear of freedom is not just psychological, it is engineered. Society does not want truly free individuals. Free individuals cannot be controlled. Governments, corporations, and institutions depend on obedience. They need people to stay in line, to seek approval, to follow trends without question. This is why everything in modern culture is designed to numb you. Entertainment addiction keeps your mind distracted. Consumerism keeps you chasing empty rewards. Social conditioning teaches you to seek acceptance over authenticity. Because if you woke up, if you truly realized that nothing is stopping you from breaking free except your own fear, you would become dangerous. Not dangerous in a violent sense. Dangerous because you would be uncontrollable. And nothing threatens the system more than a person who thinks, chooses, and acts without fear. So now the truth is in front of you. Freedom is possible, but it is not free. It demands sacrifice, the sacrifice of certainty, of comfort, of the false security that external structures provide. Most people will not make this choice. They will rationalize, delay, find reasons why they must continue to wait. But a few, will see the trap for what it is. And that brings us to the next deeper question. If you have been conditioned to fear freedom, then how do you break free? Imagine waking up 10 years from now and realizing that nothing has changed. The same routines, the same frustrations, the same quiet voice in your head whispering that you were meant for more, but you never answered it. You always had the chance to break free. You always knew, deep down, that you were living in a cage of your own making. But every time the door was opened, you hesitated. And now, looking back, you see it clearly. It was never the world that kept you trapped. It was you. This is the great, unseen consequence of fearing freedom. It steals your life while making you believe you are still in control. But how does this happen? And more importantly, how do you stop it before it's too late? The fear of freedom is not loud. It does not announce itself. It works in subtle, quiet ways, rewiring your brain, shaping your choices, keeping you stuck while making you believe you are moving forward. 1. It masquerades as rational thinking. You don't tell yourself you are afraid. Instead, you tell yourself, I just need more time. I'm being responsible by staying where I am. I'll take the leap when I'm more prepared. And so you wait. Days turn into months, months turn into years. And before you realize it, you are trapped, not by external forces, but by your own carefully constructed excuses. 2. It tricks you into seeking comfort over growth. The mind hates uncertainty. It craves comfort, routine, and predictability. This is why most people stay in jobs they hate, relationships that don't serve them, and lives that feel hollow. Not because they don't see the problem, but because the discomfort of the unknown feels scarier than the misery they already know. It's why people would rather be stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction than step into something unfamiliar. Because, at least in the cage, you know what to expect. 3. It makes you addicted to external validation. When you are not truly free, your worth is measured by how well you fit into the system. Your value is defined by your career title. Your identity is shaped by social expectations. Your choices are dictated by what is acceptable. And so you keep playing the role you were given. Because breaking free means risking rejection. It means being misunderstood. It means losing the approval of those who are still inside the system. And for most, that price is too high. Every time you choose safety over freedom, you reinforce the belief that you need the system to function. And over time, that belief becomes your reality. The more you wait, the more waiting feels normal. The more you conform, the harder it becomes to imagine another way. The longer you avoid responsibility, the more impossible freedom seems. Psychologists call this learned helplessness. When an individual, after enough experiences of limitation, stops even trying to escape. This is how people reach old age filled with regret, wondering why they never took the risks they dreamed of. Because by the time they realized the bars were an illusion, it was too late. But this fear of freedom is not just internal, it is reinforced by the world around you. Because a free individual is a threat. Governments, corporations, and institutions thrive on obedience. They need people to follow the script, to seek approval, to remain dependent on the system. So they create distractions. They engineer a world that keeps you too numb, exhausted, and overstimulated to ever stop and question it. Entertainment addiction floods your brain with constant stimulation, leaving no room for deep thought. Consumerism convinces you that happiness is something you can buy, keeping you focused on accumulation instead of transformation. Social media keeps you trapped in a cycle of comparison, ensuring that you seek validation instead of self-actualization. And just like that, the world becomes your cage. A cage that doesn't feel like a cage, because it offers comfort, pleasure, and the illusion of choice. So what happens if you never break free? What does a life ruled by fear of freedom actually look like? It looks like quiet regret. It looks like waking up every day feeling like something is missing, but never confronting what it is. It looks like resentment toward the system, toward other people, toward yourself. Because deep down, you know the truth. No one is holding you back but you. The door has always been open. The only question is, will you step through it? And if not now, then when? Imagine waking up tomorrow and making one radical decision. You will no longer be ruled by fear. Not the fear of uncertainty, not the fear of rejection, not the fear of stepping outside the system and defining life on your own terms. For the first time, you will act, not because you feel ready, but because you finally understand that waiting is the slowest form of self-destruction. And with that decision, something shifts. The invisible chains, the ones you once thought were unbreakable, begin to fall away. Because the truth is, you were never really trapped. You were only waiting for permission to be free. If you want freedom, you must take it. No one will hand it to you. No system, no leader, no external force will ever give you full control over your life. Why? Because freedom is not given, it is seized. And the first step toward it is to stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the right time. Stop waiting for clarity. Stop waiting for the world to approve of your choices. If you are waiting for the perfect moment to take action, you will wait forever. Because the world is not designed to make you free. It is designed to keep you comfortable enough not to rebel, but unfulfilled enough to keep searching for answers in all the wrong places. But now you know the truth. No one is coming. It is you or it is no one. Most people think freedom is a feeling, a state of effortless independence, clarity, and confidence. But this is an illusion. Freedom is not something you feel. It is something you practice. It is a muscle that must be trained, strengthened, and tested. And just like in the gym, the process is painful at first. It burns. It breaks you down. It forces you to confront parts of yourself you would rather avoid. But every time you act despite fear, every time you step outside the comfort of the system, you grow stronger. And one day you wake up and realize you are no longer pretending to be free. You are free, not because you waited for the right moment, but because you built it. The person you think you are, the one who obeys, who conforms, who fears, is not really you. It is a version of yourself shaped by conditioning, by childhood programming, by societal expectations. And if you want to be free, that version must die. Not physically, but psychologically. The false self, the part of you that seeks approval, that follows the script, that is terrified of standing alone. must be destroyed. How? By doing the very thing it fears most. Acting without permission. Speaking when your voice shakes, emerges. This is not easy, but it is the price of true freedom, and most people will never pay it. If you want to be free, you must be willing to stand alone. This is why most people never make it. They fear the silence that comes when they break away from the herd. They fear the loneliness that comes with rejecting societal expectations. They fear the looks, the judgment, the whispers. But what they do not realize is this: on the other side of solitude is true strength. Because when you no longer need the approval of others, you become untouchable. No system can control you. No authority can break you. No rejection can shake you. You are no longer playing their game. You are writing your own rules. Once you see through the illusion, you can never unsee it. You can never fully return to the comfort of blind obedience. And that is the final, most terrifying part of true freedom. There is no way back. The system will try to pull you in again. It will whisper, "Come back, it's easier here, it's safer." And most will listen. They will step back into their old roles, convinced that freedom was just a fantasy. But a few, a rare few, will push forward. They will embrace the fear. They will face the chaos. And in doing so, they will become something the world has not seen in a long time. They will become truly free. And now the final question remains: what happens when you reach true freedom and realize that most people will never follow? Imagine standing at the edge of the world, looking back at the life you left behind. The old routines, the old beliefs, the old fears, they are distant now, like a fading dream. You are no longer trapped in the endless loop of hesitation, conformity, and self-doubt. You have broken free. But now a new question arises. What do you do with your freedom? Most people never make it this far. They never step outside the system, never sever their dependence on external validation, never embrace the terrifying responsibility of self-authorship. But you did. And now you must face the final, most unsettling truth. True freedom is not just a gift, it is a burden. And very few are strong enough to carry it. Most people assume that once they escape the system, once they stop seeking permission, stop obeying invisible rules, stop fearing solitude, they will finally feel at peace. But this is the final illusion, because freedom does not bring peace, it brings power. And power is a heavy thing to hold. When there are no rules, you must create your own. When there is no structure, you must build your own foundation. When there is no one left to guide you, you must guide yourself. There is no master to obey. But that means there is also no one to blame. And for many, that is more terrifying than any form of oppression. You see it now, the world for what it is. You see how people trade their freedom for comfort, how they cling to routines, ideologies, and roles that numb them from the truth, how they reject those who have escaped, not because they hate them, but because they envy them, because deep down, they know they could have broken free too, but they chose not to. And so they convince themselves that you are the foolish one, that you are reckless, that you are lost. Because to accept your freedom would mean confronting their own cowardice. And so they will never join you. They will stay where it is safe. And you? You must walk alone. Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Man is condemned to be free." Because once you embrace true freedom, you realize something devastating. You can never fully belong again. The world you left behind will not welcome you back. The people still inside the system will not understand you. You will speak a different language, see with different eyes, think with a mind that is no longer conditioned by fear. And at times, that will feel like exile. At times, you will wish you could go back, plug yourself back into the machine, silence the thoughts, dull the awareness. But you can't. Because once you see through the illusion, you can never unsee it. So here it is, the final, most powerful realization. Freedom is not about escaping oppression. It is about embracing responsibility. Most people do not want freedom because they do not want to carry its weight. They do not want to be responsible for their own choices. They do not want to be the creators of their own meaning. They do not want to live without a master, because it is easier to be given a role than to forge one from nothing. Easier to obey than to decide. Easier to live in a cage with clear boundaries than to wander in an open world with no guide. This is why history is filled with men who wanted to be ruled. It is why revolutions are so rare, why most people willingly return to their chains, why, even when given the chance to be free, they refuse. Because the truth is, most people do not fear oppression. They fear the weight of their own power. Now you stand at a crossroads. You have seen the illusion. You have understood the trap. You have glimpsed what it means to be free. But now comes the hardest part. Because freedom is not a one-time decision. It is something you must choose again and again. Every day the world will try to pull you back. It will tempt you with comfort. It will lull you with distractions. It will whisper that maybe, just maybe, it would be easier to go back to sleep. And most will. Most will return to the system, to the herd, to the safety of surrender. But you, will you? Or will you keep walking forward, no matter how heavy the burden, no matter how alone the road may seem? Because at the end of that road is something the world has never truly understood. Something rare, something untamed, something powerful beyond measure. A human being who is truly free. And now the choice is yours. What will you do with your freedom?